Chosen ones, listen to me carefully. I have an important and urgent message to share today, and this message is not for everyone. This message is only for those who truly walk the divine path of God. If you are not serious about your spiritual calling, if you are only curious but not committed, this message is not meant for you. But if you are a true follower of God, if your spirit has been awakened, then I know one thing for sure. You are watching this at the exact moment you were meant to. Nothing about this is random. God has allowed this message to reach you because your life is entering a sensitive spiritual phase. There is a real danger when the chosen ones begin to surpass those who live around them. When God elevates you, not everyone can walk beside you safely. And today, I must warn you about what happens when your growth becomes visible. What I am about to share can protect your peace, your mind, and your mission. Stay with me until the very end, because many chosen ones fall into traps simply because no one explained this truth to them clearly. Before we continue, chosen ones, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the Spirit Guide channel if you haven't already, turn on the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this wisdom. And comment 777 in the comments to declare that you are aligned, protected, and walking boldly in the purpose God has given you.
When God starts lifting you above your environment. Chosen ones, there comes a moment in your life when things quietly begin to change, not around you first, but within you. This is how God works. He never starts with the outside. He always starts with the inner man. One day you wake up and you realize your thoughts are deeper, your patience is stronger, your reactions are slower, your tolerance for chaos is lower, and suddenly, the environment you once fit into no longer feels comfortable. This is not pride. This is not you thinking you are better than anyone. This is elevation. When God starts lifting you, He does not announce it publicly. He does it silently. He sharpens your discernment. He matures your spirit. He teaches you restraint. You begin to notice that conversations you once enjoyed now feel empty. Arguments you once entertained now feel exhausting. Drama that once pulled you in now repels you. That is not accidental. That is God changing your frequency. Many chosen ones struggle at this stage because they think something is wrong with them. They say, "Why do I feel disconnected? Why do I feel alone even when I am surrounded by people? Why do I no longer relate the way I used to?" Listen to me carefully. This is not isolation. This is preparation. God cannot take you where He is calling you if you still think, speak, and react like those around you. Elevation requires separation first on the inside. That is why your appetite changes. That is why your sleep patterns change. That is why you crave silence more than noise. God is training you to hear Him clearly. When you surpass your environment, it often feels uncomfortable because your spirit is now in conflict with what once felt familiar. Familiar does not mean healthy. Familiar does not mean aligned. It only means you survived there for a season, and seasons always end. Chosen ones, let me say something boldly. Not everyone around you is meant to grow at the same pace as you. God assigns different journeys, different timings, and different burdens. When He begins to accelerate you, those around you may feel left behind, even if you never intended it. This is where the danger begins, but we will get to that later. For now, understand this. When God lifts you, He also increases your awareness. You start seeing patterns you ignored before. You recognize cycles. You see through intentions. You sense energy before words are spoken. This is not imagination. This is spiritual maturity. And with maturity comes responsibility. You are no longer allowed to react emotionally the way others do. You are no longer allowed to explain yourself to everyone. You are no longer allowed to fight every battle. God is teaching you governance over your spirit. That is what surpassing truly looks like. Many chosen ones make the mistake of thinking elevation will feel exciting. Sometimes it does, but most times it feels heavy. It feels lonely. It feels confusing. Because while God is lifting you, He is also removing things you leaned on emotionally. He is teaching you how to stand without external validation. Your environment may not change immediately. You may still live among the same people, work with the same co-workers, or sit in the same rooms, but you are no longer the same person sitting there. And that difference will be felt, even if it is never spoken. This is where you must be careful. When God lifts you above your environment, you must not announce it. You must not over-explain it. You must not feel guilty for it. Elevation is not something you apologize for. It is something you steward quietly. Some of you have noticed that people treat you differently now. They listen more carefully, or they challenge you more aggressively. They joke differently. They test boundaries. This happens because your presence carries weight now, and when weight enters a room, it shifts dynamics. Chosen ones, understand this truth. God never elevates you to embarrass others. He elevates you to serve differently. But not everyone will interpret your growth correctly. Some will admire it. Some will resist it. Some will feel exposed by it. This is why surpassing your environment is a sensitive phase. You are not called to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, but you are also not called to dominate or intimidate. You are called to walk with quiet authority. Let me tell you something that may bring you peace. God knows exactly where He placed you. He knows who surrounds you. He knows who can handle your growth and who cannot. That is why He is working on your character before He changes your location. You may feel like you are outgrowing your surroundings, but do not rush God. Every environment teaches you something before release. Sometimes patience, sometimes humility, sometimes discernment, sometimes silence. Chosen ones, surpassing does not mean abandoning people emotionally. It means no longer letting them shape your identity. It means you stop seeking permission to evolve. It means you let God define you, not your past, not your circle, not your labels. If you are feeling this shift, let me reassure you, you are not broken. You are not arrogant. You are not losing yourself. You are becoming who God always intended you to be. And this is only the beginning. Chosen ones, I want you to slow down here and breathe for a moment, because this part is important for your peace. When God begins lifting you above your environment, one of the first emotional challenges you face is confusion mixed with guilt. You start wondering if you are leaving people behind. You question whether your growth is somehow hurting others. Let me speak clearly to your spirit. Growth is not betrayal. Obedience to God is not abandonment. You were never called to stay small so others could feel comfortable around you. You were never instructed by God to dim your light to preserve relationships built on familiarity instead of alignment. If God is stretching you, it is because He trusts you with more. And trust from God always comes with weight. This is also the stage where many chosen ones try to pull others with them prematurely. You explain too much. You motivate too hard. You feel responsible for awakening everyone around you. That is not your assignment. God never asked you to save those who refuse to grow. He asked you to remain faithful to your calling. Understand this gently. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, not the entire journey. When the season ends, clinging becomes resistance, and resistance always produces pain. Release does not require anger, it requires acceptance. So if your spirit feels heavier lately, if silence feels safer, if solitude feels healing, this is not withdrawal. This is wisdom forming. God is teaching you how to walk elevated without losing your humility and strong without becoming hardened. The unseen danger, when light disturbs darkness. Chosen ones, now we must talk about the part most people avoid. This is where wisdom becomes protection. When God elevates you, when your light becomes stronger, it does something whether you intend it or not. It exposes what is around you. Light does not argue with darkness. Light simply reveals it. And this is where the real danger begins. Many of you think danger only comes in loud forms. Open enemies, clear attacks, obvious opposition. But spiritual danger is rarely loud. It is subtle. It hides behind smiles, familiarity, and long histories. When your light increases, it does not just attract favor. it also disturbs what has been comfortable in the dark. You may notice people acting different toward you for no clear reason. Conversations feel tense. Energy shifts when you enter a room. Jokes become sharper. Silence becomes heavier. You did nothing wrong. Your growth simply made them aware of something they were avoiding within themselves. Here is a hard truth I must say gently. Some people are not upset with you. They are upset with who they could have been if they had chosen discipline, obedience, or growth. Your presence becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see. This is why surpassing those around you is dangerous if you are unaware. Not because they will openly attack you, but because unresolved emotions in others can turn into silent resistance. Envy does not always show as hatred. Sometimes it shows as withdrawal, sometimes as passive comments, sometimes as subtle undermining, and sometimes as spiritual interference you cannot logically explain. Chosen ones, darkness does not fear noise, it fears clarity. When you walk with clarity, you disrupt confusion. When you walk with peace, you disturb chaos. When you walk with discipline, you expose excuses. And this makes certain spirits uncomfortable. You must understand this. People who benefited from your old version may struggle with your new one. When you were uncertain, they felt secure. When you were dependent, they felt needed. When you doubted yourself, they felt superior. But now that God has stabilized you, some dynamics no longer work. This is why some people try to pull you back emotionally. They bring up old stories, old mistakes, old versions of you, not because they miss you, but because they are uncomfortable with who you are becoming. Familiarity becomes a tool to limit growth. The danger here is not them. The danger is you becoming unaware. When chosen ones feel this tension, they often do one of two things. They either shrink themselves to restore comfort, or they become defensive and reactive. Both responses weaken your spiritual position. Let me be clear. Shrinking yourself creates resentment. Defending yourself creates exhaustion. God is calling you to neither. He is calling you to awareness and restraint. There is another unseen danger I must mention. When your light increases, people may begin to study you, not to learn, but to compare. Comparison is a doorway to envy, and envy, when left unchecked, becomes spiritually toxic. This does not mean everyone around you is against you. It means discernment is now required. Chosen ones, some of you are experiencing spiritual fatigue, and you cannot explain why. You pray, you obey, you stay disciplined, yet you feel drained after certain interactions. This is not coincidence. Energy exchange is real. When unresolved emotions meet your peace, it creates imbalance. This is why God begins teaching chosen ones silence at this stage. Not secrecy out of fear, but privacy out of wisdom. You do not owe everyone access to your thoughts, plans, or process. Oversharing during elevation is dangerous because it gives others emotional access they have not earned spiritually. Another danger is misunderstanding. When you surpass others, they may label you as distant, arrogant, or cold. This can hurt deeply, especially if you love them. But listen to me carefully. Misunderstanding is often the price of obedience. You cannot be fully aligned with God and fully understood by everyone. Here is something important. Not every uncomfortable reaction is intentional harm. Some people simply do not have the capacity to walk with you at this level. Capacity matters. Emotional capacity, spiritual capacity, mental capacity. When you exceed someone's capacity, closeness becomes strain. This is why God sometimes removes people quietly instead of dramatically. Sudden endings create trauma. Gradual distance creates adjustment. If God is allowing space, do not rush to fill it. Let Him do the separating. Your job is not to identify enemies. Your job is to stay aligned. Chosen ones, surpassing others does not make you untouchable. It makes you responsible. Responsible for your reactions. Responsible for your boundaries. Responsible for your humility. Power without wisdom creates vulnerability. Let me calm your spirit here. This danger is not meant to scare you. It is meant to prepare you. God does not elevate without protection, but protection works best when you cooperate with wisdom. If you are feeling tension around you lately, if peace requires distance, if silence feels safer than explanation, this is not paranoia. This is discernment activating. And discernment is one of the greatest gifts God gives to His chosen. Your light is not the problem. Lack of boundaries is. And now that you understand this, you are already safer than before. Chosen ones, let me go even deeper here, because many of you are sensing this danger but cannot name it. And what cannot be named often creates anxiety. I want to remove that anxiety from your spirit right now. When your light disturbs darkness, it does not mean darkness will always attack. Often, it observes first. It studies patterns. It waits for emotional openings. That is why moments of exhaustion, guilt, or loneliness can feel intensified during elevation. This is also why God teaches you emotional discipline before He gives you public influence. Every emotional reaction is a doorway. Every unnecessary explanation is an invitation. When you begin surpassing others, you must become aware of how accessible you are. Not everyone who asks for access deserves it. Not everyone who listens has pure intentions. Some of you have noticed that people suddenly want advice from you. They ask spiritual questions. They lean on you emotionally more than before. While this may look harmless, it can quietly drain you if you are not discerning. You are not called to be everyone's counselor. Even Jesus withdrew to pray. If the Son of God needed solitude, how much more do you? There is another subtle danger I must address. When people feel your growth, some will attempt to compete instead of heal. Competition in spiritual spaces is dangerous because it turns growth into performance. Stay far from comparison. Your journey is not a race. God measures obedience, not visibility. Chosen ones, do not underestimate how powerful quiet confidence is. You do not need to announce what God is doing in your life. The fruit will speak louder than any testimony you try to force. Silence confuses those who expected a reaction. Peace disarms those waiting for emotional responses. I want you to understand this clearly. You are not responsible for how others interpret your growth. You are only responsible for staying aligned with God. If someone feels uncomfortable, that discomfort may be an invitation for them to grow, not for you to shrink. So guard your heart gently but firmly. Choose rest over overexposure. Choose wisdom over reaction. Choose alignment over approval. This is how you walk safely when your light grows stronger. And when you do, God Himself becomes your defender, your shield, and your covering. You are not alone in this. Heaven is actively watching how you steward this season. Why God does not warn you immediately? Chosen ones, this is a question many of you have carried silently. If God knew this danger existed, if He knew that surpassing others would expose you to misunderstanding, resistance, and unseen pressure, then why did He not warn you sooner? Why did He allow you to walk into this phase without explanation? Let me answer you calmly, clearly, and without hesitation. God does not reveal everything at once because revelation without readiness becomes weight instead of wisdom. If God explained the full cost of elevation too early, fear would interrupt obedience. You would hesitate where faith was required. You would overthink what needed surrender. God develops strength before He gives clarity. A wise father does not explain adult struggles to a child. He allows growth to happen naturally. In the same way, God allows you to experience elevation before He explains the spiritual responsibility that comes with it. Strength must come before awareness. Otherwise, awareness becomes overwhelming. Chosen ones, discernment is not learned through instruction alone. It is formed through experience. God allows you to feel subtle shifts. He allows you to sense changes in relationships. He allows moments of confusion, distance, and emotional tension so your spirit learns patterns. This is how spiritual maturity develops. You are learning to recognize truth without needing constant confirmation. If God warned you too early, you might have become suspicious instead of loving. You might have misjudged people prematurely. You might have labeled discomfort as danger when it was simply misalignment. God protects your heart by waiting until your character can handle discernment without becoming hardened. Another reason God delays warning is because your identity must be secure. When chosen ones are still unsure of who they are, awareness of spiritual opposition can create arrogance or fear. God does not want either. He waits until humility and confidence are balanced within you. Only then can you carry awareness without distortion. There is something else you must understand. Some lessons cannot be taught with words. They must be lived. God allows you to experience misunderstanding so you learn patience. He allows you to feel loneliness so you learn reliance on Him. He allows silence so you learn wisdom. These are not punishments, they are preparations. Chosen ones, God often teaches through atmosphere rather than explanation. You felt the shift before you understood it. You sensed discomfort before you could name it. You felt drained before you recognized why. This was intentional. God was training your spiritual senses. If He had explained everything too soon, you would have tried to control outcomes instead of trusting Him. You would have adjusted behavior instead of strengthening character. God is more interested in who you become than how comfortable your environment feels. Another reason God waits is because separation must happen naturally. Forced separation creates wounds. Natural distance creates clarity. When God allows people to drift without drama, it protects both you and them. Sudden warnings often cause emotional reactions. Gradual awareness produces wisdom. Chosen ones, God also uses this delay to reveal who truly belongs in your next season. Those who respect your growth will adjust. Those who resist it will expose themselves over time. God lets patterns speak louder than confrontation. Time becomes your filter. You may wonder why prayer did not immediately remove discomfort, why obedience did not instantly restore peace. Understand this: peace does not always come from change around you. Sometimes it comes from strength within you. God was building that strength. Delayed warning is not abandonment, it is trust. God trusted that your spirit could handle this phase even before your mind understood it. He trusted your obedience. He trusted your heart. He trusted your growth. Let me say something that will bring you rest. God never allows danger without provision. But provision often comes through wisdom gained over time, not instant instruction. You were never unprotected. You were being trained. If you are now beginning to understand why certain interactions felt heavy, why silence became necessary, why peace required distance, this means you are ready. Awareness has arrived because maturity has formed. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not confused. You are exactly where God intended you to be. And now that you see clearly, you are no longer vulnerable. You are equipped. God always reveals what His chosen ones need when they are ready to steward it wisely. Chosen ones, there is another layer to this that many do not realize until much later in life. God delays warning because He wants your trust to mature beyond dependence on explanation. Early in faith, people rely heavily on answers. As you grow, God teaches you to rely on discernment. This transition is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for spiritual leadership. If God explained every danger in advance, you would begin to rely more on information than intimacy with Him. You would look for signs instead of listening for His voice. God wants you anchored in relationship, not instruction manuals. That is why He allows seasons where you must lean into Him without clarity. There is also a refining that happens in uncertainty. When you do not fully understand what is happening around you, your reactions reveal what still needs healing. Do you rush to explain yourself? Do you seek validation? Do you become anxious when misunderstood? God allows these moments so what is hidden can surface and be healed. Chosen ones, God is not just preparing you to survive elevation. He is preparing you to lead without bitterness. If He warned you too soon, you might have hardened your heart toward people who simply lacked capacity. God wants you to remain compassionate even when you must be distant. Another reason God delays warning is because protection increases with obedience. You did not need full awareness when your light was still developing. As your influence grows, so does God's covering. Revelation comes when responsibility increases. This is divine order. Some of you struggled emotionally in this season because you assumed clarity would come before peace. But God often gives peace first, then explanation. That peace was your signal that He was present, even when answers were not. Let me say this gently. God never leaves His chosen ones confused forever. Confusion is temporary. Discernment is permanent. What you gain in this season will serve you for the rest of your life. So if you felt stretched, unsettled, or tested without answers, do not regret it. That season strengthened your spiritual muscles. You can now carry truth without panic and awareness without fear. This is not delay. This is divine timing working perfectly in your favor. Emotional and mental strain of surpassing others. Chosen ones, this is the part few people talk about honestly. Everyone celebrates elevation, but no one prepares you for the emotional weight that comes with it. Surpassing others does not only change your environment, it changes your inner world. And if you are not aware of what is happening inside you, this season can feel heavier than it needs to be. One of the first things you experience is a quiet sadness you cannot explain. You are grateful for your growth, yet you feel a sense of loss. You miss the ease of old connections. You miss being understood without explanation. You miss belonging without effort. This does not mean you want to go backward. It means you are human. Chosen ones, elevation requires emotional recalibration. Your nervous system is adjusting to new levels of responsibility, awareness, and restraint. You are learning to hold more without leaking emotionally. This is exhausting at times, especially when you are surrounded by people who do not see what God is doing in you. Many of you feel guilt during this phase. Guilt for changing, guilt for outgrowing, guilt for needing space. Let me speak clearly to that guilt. You are not wrong for becoming who God called you to be. You are not obligated to stay emotionally accessible to everyone. Growth always requires boundaries, and boundaries always feel uncomfortable at first. Another strain chosen ones face is misunderstanding. People may say you are distant, cold, or different. These words can cut deeply, especially when you know your heart. But understand this. People describe you based on how your change affects them, not based on who you truly are. You may notice that you are thinking more before speaking, holding back opinions, choosing silence over correction. This is not fear. This is wisdom forming. But wisdom can feel lonely when others still live in reaction. There is also mental fatigue that comes from constantly self-regulating. You are aware of energy now. You are aware of tone. You are aware of intention. This awareness can feel heavy because you cannot unsee what you now see. But awareness is a sign of maturity, not burden. Chosen ones, many of you struggle with the desire to explain yourself. You want others to understand that you are not rejecting them, that you still care, that you are not better than them. But over-explaining drains you. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. Some are meant to observe it from a distance. Another emotional strain is the temptation to shrink yourself. You lower your voice, you soften your confidence, you hide your insight, all to keep peace. But shrinking creates internal conflict. You feel frustrated without knowing why. That frustration comes from denying who you are becoming. God did not elevate you to disappear. He elevated you to steward light responsibly. That means you stay authentic without forcing acceptance. There is also grief in realizing that some people you love cannot follow you into your next season. This grief is quiet. There is no argument, no betrayal, just distance. This is one of the hardest parts of spiritual growth. But understand this: God removes access before He removes affection. Love does not disappear. Access changes. Chosen ones, emotional strain also comes from being the strong one. Others lean on you. They vent. They seek advice. They offload. And while you want to help, you must be careful not to carry what God did not assign you. Compassion without boundaries leads to burnout. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to withdraw. You are allowed to protect your peace without explanation. Jesus often left crowds. He disappointed expectations, and he did not apologize for obeying his Father. Mental strain increases when chosen ones try to maintain old emotional patterns in a new spiritual position. That tension creates anxiety. Release the expectation that everyone must stay close. Let God manage proximity. Chosen ones, let me offer you therapy for your spirit right now. You are not losing people because you are wrong. You are losing alignment because you are growing. Growth naturally rearranges relationships. If you feel emotionally tired, it does not mean you are weak. It means you are carrying more awareness than before. Rest is not regression, it is maintenance. God is teaching you how to live from peace, not adrenaline. From discernment, not reaction. From alignment, not approval. You will not always feel this strain. It is seasonal. As your inner world stabilizes, peace will become your default. But for now, be gentle with yourself. You are adjusting to the weight of becoming who God always saw when He called you chosen. And that adjustment, though uncomfortable, is holy. Chosen ones, I want to sit with you a little longer in this space, because many of you have been silently blaming yourselves for this emotional weight. You tell yourself that you should be stronger, more joyful, more grateful. But emotional maturity does not remove feeling, it refines it. What you are experiencing is not weakness, it is expansion. There is a specific mental strain that comes when you realize you can no longer be fully honest everywhere. Not because you are hiding, but because not every space is safe for your depth. This creates internal pressure. You edit yourself. You translate your thoughts. You hold back insight. Over time, this can feel suffocating if you do not allow yourself spaces where you can exhale. Some chosen ones cope by staying busy. Others retreat into silence. Neither is wrong, but both must be balanced with intentional rest in God. Solitude with Him is not isolation, it is recalibration. This is where your nervous system learns safety again. You may also feel moments of self-doubt, wondering if you imagined this growth. Let me ground you. Confusion does not appear in people who are stagnant, it appears in those transitioning. If you were not changing, there would be no inner tension. Another hidden strain is carrying expectations others place on you once they sense your strength. They assume you will always understand, always forgive, always lead. But you are still human. You are allowed to have days when you need support too. Do not punish yourself for needing rest. Chosen ones, this season teaches emotional honesty with God. Say what you feel. Admit the exhaustion. Admit the grief. He is not threatened by your honesty. He heals through it. Let me say this with authority. You do not need to rush through this phase. Healing is happening even when it feels uncomfortable. Stability is forming beneath the surface. One day, you will look back and realize this was the season where your inner world caught up with your calling. The strain will fade, but the strength will remain. Until then, breathe. Slow down. You are not broken. You are becoming balanced. God is not in a hurry with you, and neither should you be. The spiritual law of separation and protection. Chosen ones, now we arrive at a truth that brings relief when it is understood correctly. Separation is not punishment. Separation is protection. God does not separate you because you are better. He separates you because you are carrying something valuable, and valuable things require covering. Many people misunderstand separation and think it means rejection, abandonment, or loss. That is not how God works. God separates to preserve. He separates to stabilize. He separates to protect what He has already invested in you. When God begins to distance you from certain people, conversations, or environments, He is not taking something away. He is guarding something He placed within you. There is a spiritual law at work here. Access must match capacity. When your capacity grows, not everyone qualifies for the same level of access anymore. This does not make them bad. It simply means the alignment has shifted. And alignment is more important than attachment. Chosen ones, one of the most dangerous mistakes during elevation is resisting separation. You hold on emotionally, you force proximity, you keep explaining yourself, and in doing so, you expose yourself unnecessarily. God never intended you to fight separation. He intended you to flow with it. Protection often comes quietly. God does not always remove people with confrontation. Sometimes He removes the desire to engage. Sometimes He removes the energy to explain. Sometimes He removes the comfort you once felt. This is not confusion. This is divine intervention. Let me say something that will calm your spirit. You do not need to identify who is for you and who is against you. That is not your job. God handles discernment over time. Your responsibility is obedience, not investigation. Chosen ones, when God separates you, He also teaches you boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They decide what enters your emotional and spiritual space. Without boundaries, even good people can become draining. With boundaries, even difficult situations become manageable. Some of you feel guilty for needing space. You think love requires constant availability. That belief will exhaust you. Even Jesus loved deeply, yet He withdrew often. Love without wisdom leads to burnout. Love with boundaries leads to longevity. There is another reason separation is necessary. When God elevates you, your spirit becomes sensitive. You feel more. You perceive more. This makes you powerful, but also vulnerable if unprotected. Separation reduces unnecessary exposure so your strength can stabilize. Chosen ones, understand this carefully. Protection does not always mean distance from people. Sometimes it means distance from conversations, from topics, from emotional exchanges that no longer serve your peace. You can remain present without being accessible. God also separates you to teach you reliance on Him instead of people. When familiar support fades, divine support strengthens. This is uncomfortable at first, but it deepens your relationship with God in ways nothing else can. Another spiritual law is this: what cannot follow you must fall away. God never forces growth on people. He invites. Those who refuse the invitation cannot remain in the same position without friction. That friction is not your fault. Chosen ones, separation refines humility. You learn to walk without applause. You learn to obey without validation. You learn to trust without reassurance. These qualities protect you more than any external defense. There is also protection in silence. Silence prevents unnecessary conflict. Silence prevents misinterpretation. Silence allows God to fight battles you would only complicate by speaking. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. God knows the truth. Some of you feel exposed because you no longer feel shielded by community. Let me reassure you. God Himself becomes your covering when human coverings change. You are not uncovered. You are differently covered. Another important truth. Separation does not mean you stop loving. It means you love without attachment. You care without carrying. You pray without positioning yourself in harm's way. This is spiritual maturity. Chosen ones, protection increases when you stop resisting what God is doing. Peace comes when you stop forcing access. Stability forms when you stop explaining transitions. If God is creating distance, let it happen. If He is reducing interaction, allow it. If He is drawing you inward, trust it. Every separation is making room for alignment. You are not being isolated. You are being secured. And when this season settles, you will realize that what felt like loss was actually preservation. What felt like distance was actually safety. What felt like confusion was actually divine order, rearranging your life for your highest good. God is not removing people to punish you. He is removing pressure so you can stand strong. This is how chosen ones are protected. Chosen ones, let me add another layer of wisdom here. because many of you are standing right at the edge of misunderstanding this season. Separation does not always look like people leaving your life completely. Sometimes it looks like emotional distance while physical proximity remains. You may still see the same faces, hear the same voices, walk the same streets, yet feel a quiet disconnect inside. This is not coldness. This is God recalibrating your spirit so you are no longer influenced by what once shaped you. There is protection in emotional neutrality. When God separates you internally, He removes the hooks that others once had in your emotions. Their opinions no longer control your peace. Their moods no longer dictate your reactions. This is a powerful form of freedom, but it can feel unfamiliar at first. You may even mistake it for numbness. It is not numbness, it is stability. Some chosen ones struggle here because they confuse loyalty with access. Loyalty does not require constant closeness. Loyalty is proven by respect for growth. If someone truly honors your calling, they will not demand the same version of you forever, and if they do, God will limit their access for your protection. Another hidden aspect of separation is that it protects you from spiritual contamination. Energy transfers through prolonged exposure. Mindsets transfer through conversation. Emotional wounds transfer through unresolved attachment. God knows this. That is why He quietly removes you from environments that would slowly drain what He is building in you. Chosen ones, protection also involves timing. God separates you before the damage becomes visible, before resentment forms, before bitterness grows, before exhaustion becomes collapse. What you feel now is prevention, not loss. God always moves early when He cares deeply. There is also protection in anonymity. When God pulls you back, He reduces visibility for a season, not because you are hidden, but because you are being strengthened. Some blessings grow best underground. Roots form in private. Stability is built away from attention. This season may feel quiet, but it is not empty. Let me speak to those who feel uncomfortable setting boundaries. Boundaries are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of stewardship. God entrusted you with a mind, a heart, and a calling. Protecting those is obedience. You do not owe unlimited access to anyone, no matter how long they have known you. Another truth many chosen ones need to hear is this. Separation reveals who respects your boundaries and who resents them. Pay attention without reacting. This information is valuable. It teaches you who can walk with you safely and who cannot handle your growth without feeling threatened. Protection also looks like restraint. God teaches you when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence is not weakness. Silence is authority under control. You do not need to defend your transformation. Fruit will speak louder than explanations. Chosen ones, there is a deep peace that comes when you stop fighting separation. When you stop trying to make everyone comfortable. When you stop negotiating your growth. That peace is confirmation. It is God's approval resting on your obedience. Let me reassure you of this. God never separates you without surrounding you with divine support. What leaves is replaced. What fades makes room. You may not see it yet, but alignment is forming quietly. So if your circle feels smaller, your heart feels quieter, and your life feels simpler, do not panic. This is protection taking shape. This is God reducing noise so you can hear Him clearly. You are not losing connection. You are gaining clarity. You are not being pushed away. You are being positioned safely. And this protection will carry you into the next season stronger, steadier, and unshakable. How to walk safely when you've surpassed your circle. Chosen ones, this is where wisdom becomes practical. Knowing there is danger is one thing. Knowing how to move through this season safely is another. God does not elevate you and leave you without instruction. He teaches you how to walk differently, think differently, and respond differently so your growth does not become a burden to you or a weapon against you. The first thing God teaches you in this season is restraint. Not silence rooted in fear, but restraint rooted in wisdom. You learn that not every thought needs a voice. Not every revelation needs an audience. Not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Timing becomes more important than expression. This is how you protect yourself without becoming guarded. Chosen ones, humility is your greatest safety. Humility does not mean denying what God has done in you. It means you no longer need to prove it. When you walk humbly, you disarm comparison. You reduce resistance. You remain teachable even while elevated. Pride attracts conflict. Humility attracts covering. Another key to walking safely is emotional regulation. You are no longer allowed to react the way you once did. Reactions give others power over your inner world. God teaches you to pause, observe, and respond only when necessary. Calmness becomes your strength. Peace becomes your shield. You must also learn discernment in conversation. Not everyone deserves access to your inner process. Some people ask questions to understand. Others ask questions to compare. Some listen to support. Others listen to store information. Walking safely means you speak from wisdom, not from impulse. Chosen ones, prayer becomes more private in this season. Not less powerful, but more intimate. You rely less on external affirmation and more on internal alignment. God becomes your primary counsel. This deepens trust and sharpens clarity. When God leads, confusion loses its grip. Another safety principle is consistency. Do not shift your character to match your environment. Stay grounded in who God is shaping you to be. Inconsistency creates vulnerability. Stability creates authority. When people cannot predict emotional reactions, tension increases. When they encounter steady presence, dynamics settle. Boundaries are essential here. Not aggressive boundaries, but clear ones. You decide what conversations you engage in, what emotional exchanges you entertain, what energy you allow near you. Boundaries do not require announcements. They are enforced through behavior, not explanation. Chosen ones, one of the most powerful ways to walk safely is to release the need to be understood. When you let go of that need, manipulation loses access to you. Misunderstanding no longer threatens your peace. God understands you fully, and that is enough. There will be moments when you are tempted to correct perceptions, to defend your growth, to clarify intentions. Ask yourself this before speaking. Is this necessary or is this emotional? God often asks you to remain quiet, not to suppress truth, but to allow Him to reveal it in His time. Walking safely also means staying connected to God's rhythm. Rest when He says rest. Move when He says move. Do not rush outcomes. Elevation does not mean urgency. Many chosen ones fall into exhaustion because they confuse calling with constant output. God values obedience more than productivity. Another important aspect is compassion without entanglement. You care deeply, but you do not carry burdens that are not yours. You listen without absorbing. You support without rescuing. This balance protects your emotional health and preserves your strength. Chosen ones learn to observe patterns without judgment. Observation gives information. Judgment creates conflict. When you notice changes in behavior around you, do not confront immediately. Let clarity come naturally. Time reveals truth better than confrontation ever could. Staying grounded in gratitude also protects you. Gratitude anchors your heart in humility. It reminds you that everything you have is grace. Gratitude dissolves entitlement and keeps your spirit light even as responsibility increases. There is also safety in simplicity. You do not need complex explanations. You do not need elaborate plans. You do not need dramatic exits. Quiet obedience keeps you covered. God often does His deepest work in ordinary routines. Chosen ones understand this. Walking safely does not mean walking fearfully. You are not shrinking, you are stabilizing. You are learning how to carry weight without strain, how to hold authority without intimidation, how to love without overextending. You may feel slower in this season. That is intentional. Depth takes time. God is not rushing you because what He is building must last. Let me leave you with this truth. When you walk aligned, You do not need to watch your back constantly. God becomes your rear guard. Your job is to stay present, obedient, and humble. This is how chosen ones move safely when they have surpassed their circle. And when you master this, peace becomes your normal state, not a temporary relief. Chosen ones, let me add what may be the most grounding wisdom of all for this season. Walking safely is not about constant vigilance. It is about inner alignment. When your inner world is stable, external shifts lose their power over you. Many of you think safety comes from controlling situations or people. It does not. It comes from surrendering control to God and trusting His order. One of the clearest signs that you are walking safely is that you no longer feel the urge to react immediately. Space forms between stimulus and response. In that space, wisdom lives. You pause. You breathe. You listen inwardly before speaking outwardly. This pause protects you more than any argument ever could. Chosen ones, let me speak about humility again, but from a deeper angle. True humility is not lowering yourself. It is knowing who you are and being at peace with it. When you stop competing for recognition, you become untouchable emotionally. Nothing disarms insecurity like contentment. There is also safety in allowing people to misunderstand you. That may sound uncomfortable, but it is freeing. When you stop trying to manage others' perceptions, you conserve enormous emotional energy. That energy is meant for your calling, not for damage control. God also teaches you to value rhythm over intensity. You do not need to prove faith through exhaustion. Rest is an act of trust. When you rest, you declare that God is working even when you are not. This protects you from burnout and spiritual dryness. Another powerful safety practice is keeping your inner circle small and spiritually mature. Not everyone who supports you emotionally can support you spiritually. Choose carefully who you share deep things with. Depth requires trust, and trust requires consistency. Chosen ones, do not underestimate the power of gratitude spoken privately to God. Gratitude recalibrates your heart when pressure builds. It reminds you that you are guided, not alone. It shifts focus from what feels heavy to what is secure. Walking safely also means releasing urgency. God's timing is not rushed. Urgency creates mistakes. Patience creates precision. When you slow down, clarity increases. When clarity increases, fear decreases. Let me say something comforting. You do not need to protect yourself aggressively. God is already doing that. Your role is to stay obedient, humble, and aware. He handles the rest. As you practice these things, you will notice something beautiful. Peace will no longer come and go. It will settle. Confidence will no longer need reinforcement. It will stabilize, and fear will lose its voice. This is the fruit of walking wisely after surpassing your circle. Not isolation, not arrogance, but grounded authority. You are learning how to stand tall without casting shadows, and that is rare. When you move like this, your life itself becomes a quiet testimony. Conclusion. A final word for the chosen ones. Chosen ones, I want to leave you with peace, not pressure. If there is one truth you must carry from this message, it is this. You are not imagining your growth. You are not overthinking the distance. And you are not wrong for becoming who God has been shaping you to be all along. Yes, there is a real danger when chosen ones surpass those around them, but the danger was never meant to stop you. It was meant to mature you. God has been guiding you carefully through every shift, every emotional strain, every quiet separation. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been accidental. If your life feels quieter now, that is not emptiness. That is clarity. If your circle feels smaller, that is not loss. That is protection. If you feel more inward, more reflective, more selective, that is wisdom settling into place. You are not being punished. You are being preserved. Do not rush this season. Do not explain yourself out of peace. Do not shrink to maintain comfort. God did not elevate you to confuse you. He elevated you because he trusts you with more. Rest in that trust. Walk gently, walk humbly, walk aware, and know that heaven is actively involved in every step you take. You are covered, you are guided, you are protected. Before you leave, chosen ones, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the Spirit Guide channel if you haven't already, turn on the bell icon, and share this message with other chosen ones who need this spiritual clarity. And comment 777 in the comments as a declaration that you are aligned, protected, and walking confidently in the purpose God has given you. Until next time, remain grounded, remain faithful, and remain at peace.